Okay, hello everyone. I'm Women's Grandmaster Sabina Foisor and we're here at the St. Louis Chess Club. For today's lesson, we're going to look at the viewer's choice. So I have a couple of games that I prepared for today. So we will try to look at some of the games that were submitted and try to learn from them. And also, you know, lucky people got the chance to see their games. So if you're interested in this, be sure to submit your games to the St. Louis Chess Club and you can have your games picked and analyzed. So let's get started with the first game that I have. So this game was sent by Blake, and let me adjust this for a second. And it's a pretty interesting game. I think a lot of you might enjoy it. For part of the game, it was played pretty well, and White got a really nice advantage in the Grünfeld. But then, well, things changed. So I'm going to put it on training, and we'll get started. So we have the Grünfeld D5. I have an actually really interesting story about this. Some of you might know the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz took place last week, and I was in the commentary room with VAR and Robert Hess, and they were discussing of what Kasparov will play in the game against Hikaru Nakamura. So Hikaru had White, and you know, they played D4, Knight F6, C4, G6, and everybody thought, okay, we are going to have the King's Indian. And I actually guessed somehow there would be the Grünfeld. Nobody was really happy, but it was pretty fun. So for some of you who might want to relive that, you can go back and see the video. But anyways, Grünfeld is a pretty popular opening, and there are a lot of lines that White can choose here. E4 is of course pretty popular one. Bishop D2 is something that can be played as well. Some people even don't take in D5. They like to play Bishop G5 in this position, or Knight F3 or E3. There are a lot of lines for White. So anyways, in this game, Blake played E4. And here, Knight B6. And I was a little bit surprised to see this, this move. And if we look at the rating of the two players, they're both around 1600 on Lichess, which I believe Lichess kind of has the ratings a little bit pumped up, so maybe the players are around 1300. I wouldn't know very much about this, but some of you who use the website might know. Typically, Knight takes E3 is the main line, yeah? You all know this? Okay. So Knight B6, and what do you guys think about this move? Let's also, you know, hear some opinions. Do you think this is a good move? Yes.
I don't think it's a good move. I mean, White has center strong. It's going to get stronger with F3 and bring the bishops out. It seems like he's just going to dominate the center of the board.
Yeah, it's pretty. So the idea of the Grünfeld is basically that the fact that Black is going to develop a little bit fast. The bishop in G7 usually is a really strong piece, and Black typically plays C5 and breaks through the center. So at first, we give White the center. It seems like with the capture in C3, we're helping White to strengthen the center, but Black kind of gets to develop a little bit faster, and this bishop is typically a beast. So for those of you who play the Grünfeld, you should be familiar with some of these ideas. And for White, when you're playing these lines, you typically want to find a way to get this rook from A1 away from the square, from the diagonal, but also you have to be very cautious about the D4 pawn. Sometimes Black tries to make you push it in to push the move D5, and it typically gets crazy. So anyway, so Knight B6 doesn't make so much sense for Black because you're really just moving the knight a little bit too much, and you gave White the center, and you're not even trying to have a little bit of advantage in development. But it's not a super bad move. It's not like Black is lost or anything. So White decided to be really aggressive by playing F4 in this position. What do you guys think? Was this a good choice? Would you play F4 here, or is there maybe another move that you would have considered playing you know, if there are any d4 players.
Maybe bishop d3, just develop.
Bishop d3, so you're trying to kind of trick him to capture your pawn, right? To do a discovery. Well, typically you don't place the bishop there. Typically, you're waiting a little bit with this bishop. This bishop typically gets developed in e2 or b5 for white. They don't typically put it in d3 in the Grünfeld. You can certainly try, but okay, of course, black will not capture. Probably play bishop g7. And then, what is your plan? How are you going to finish your development, and what is your actual plan?
Well,
Yes?
if you're going to protect the D point, you have to develop the knight to E2. So that way the other bishop can't pen it, and you can play F3.
Certainly there are ideas like this to develop the knight in e2. A lot of people get scared to develop their knight in f3 in the Grünfeld, but actually it's not that big of a deal, really. Even if bishop g4 is being played, you don't mind the doubling of the pawns, because it is very hard for black to bring pieces to attack your king. So a lot of people actually develop it in f3, but of course if you have the option and you want to, you can certainly develop it in e2 as well. I particularly would probably try to play something like knight f3 in this position, maybe bishop e3, bishop e2 castle, and then place my rook on the c file. Just, you know, strengthen my center basically. But f4 doesn't seem that bad of an option, you know, because with white you have the ability to get a little bit more space, so why not do it? I think this was an okay, you know, move. Bishop g7, knight f3, c6. Now, I want to ask you, what do you guys think about this move, c6? Like it for black, not so much. Not so much, huh? Yeah, it's a little bit strange. I mean, that's typically a place for the knight. Black typically plays with c5, puts pressure in d4, and then develops the knight there. So c6 is a little bit of like a solid type of move, and it kind of restricts black, you know. They don't try to get very much from the position. So here we have a pretty good play from white, finishing the development. Bishop e6, not the place to be for the bishop, right? g4 is a slightly better square for that bishop. But okay, castle, castle, and in this position, white played bishop e3, which normally I would like, but in this position with bishop e6, black has some ideas, right? It's controlling the c4 square and could place either the bishop or the knight in c4. So when you see a piece like this that doesn't seem to be on the best place, but does have some ideas, so it's not really like a bad choice, you really want to restrict them. And especially because white has so much space with these central pawns, I would have gone for a b3. This is a very nice, in a way, prophylactic move, but also could help your development. You could consider develop the bishop in b2 as well. But what I like the most is the fact that the pawn restricts this knight in b6, and not only that, in this case also the bishop. So black wouldn't have any kind of activity here and just has to ask himself, what is he going to do next? Because white has, you know, white has basically control up to 5th rank, and black is simply restricted, right? So when you get the center, it is very, very important to try to restrict the opponent even more and not let them the chance to counterattack, because eventually they will realize, okay, I have no space, I need to do something. So you really don't want to let them do anything, and you want to restrict them as much as possible. And something else that you don't want to do, which later you'll see white did, is trade pieces. If your opponent doesn't have space, you don't want to help them. If you trade their pieces, they will start having, you know, the space to maneuver the rest of their pieces, right? So if you let them there, what is this knight going to do? What is this one from b8 going to do, right? It's just very, very restricted for black. And then, you know, once you finish your development, so let's just say something like this, you can always play king h1 just to make sure nothing will happen on your pawn in d4. Queen d2, I would say rook d1, and then you can consider starting your attack. But white played bishop e3, and now, what choice did it allow black to do?
Knight c4.
Knight c4, but nope, it hasn't been played. Bishop c4 was played. So which of the two do you think is better? Do you like bishop c4 or do you like knight c4 more? Knight c4? Okay, so let's try to think of how would have white continued here.
Retreat that bishop, yeah.
Where do we move the bishop? Or we take it? What did you say?
I wouldn't take it because I'm giving up the bishop to the knight.
Yes. So you want to...
Retreat to f2.
And can black capture this pawn?
Yeah, I think then queen to b3.
Ooh, queen b3, be careful. There's a
Oh,
bishop.
wait, the bishop's there.
You cannot get the knight immediately. You would have to move your queen, and then I think I can come back to c4. So, and if you take, then you give the bishop pair, at least black gets something out of this spaceless position. But okay, black decided to go bishop c4, which also makes some sense, trading a piece, and you have no choice but to allow the trade. And in this position, white played rook to c1. I think bishop takes c4 was another option, and here bishop f2, because now if black captures, it would be a mistake, because now we have this move queen to e2, and controlling, of course, everything is controlled, so this knight is going to be lost. So at least if you make the trade, just I think you can make sure that that knight would be chased away. So for example, after knight d7, now queen e2, chasing the knight away, and then yes, we did trade one piece, but that's it. And then the knight from c4 will be chased away back, and we still have a very big advantage with white.
Fourth move for that knight.
Yes, yes. Well, fifth, it will be fifth, right? Because, yeah, f6, d5, b6, c4, and now back. So, and 5 moves out of 13 is pretty bad. It's pretty bad for a piece. I mean, there are some openings where it's fine, like the Alekhine defense, for example, but you really need to have some counterattack. You cannot play without doing something in the center. So anyways, I think this was a slightly better option for white. Instead, white played rook to c1, knight d7, and I believe once again this is possible. White could have taken in c4, played bishop f2, queen e2, you know, in case of the capture, and things would be fine. But instead, white played knight e5, and I did just mention that this move is a dubious move, but I'm tempted to say that it's a bad move. Why do you think that I'm saying this about the move knight e5? Trading, guys. I mentioned trading. We have more space. Look at this knight in f3, right? It's already, by comparing this knight to this one, we can see that this knight in f3, I should make it green because it's a better knight. It's a little bit better placed than this one in d7, and we don't want to trade pieces. Not only this, after knight e5, white basically says, well, once you trade, I don't mind doubling my pawns, which if you would have some continuation, or you would be able to use the f-file to your benefit, maybe it would be a great thing, right? You would be able to create some attack, and things would work in your favor. But the problem is, after knight e5, capture, f takes, the position is not so great for white anymore. I'm having trouble figuring out how white is going to create some serious threats. ideas with e6 typically are famous for these types of position to get rid of the double pawn and maybe try to create some weaknesses, but right now it doesn't quite work. There's the bishop, and we just closed this bishop in g7, so we did another pretty good thing, but the balance, it doesn't add up in my opinion for the balance. So we're trading black's pieces who don't have space, and we're not really getting very much out of it, aside from the fact that we're closing the bishop in g7. Really, the f file, it looks great, but in my opinion cannot really be used by white for having a great advantage. Black played e6 here. b3, forcing. Which one?
Is e6 a good move?
I think it's okay for black.
Wouldn't you want to break with f6 at some point?
You would want, but you can still do it even after you play e6, because if you play f6 at some point the trade, then you can later play e5. I think the reason black played e6 was, you know, if the trade was going to happen, so that white wouldn't have e6. So considering that you want to trade a bishop, it makes sense to kind of blockade the position, in my opinion. Plus, the fact that these pawns are creating a chain with the pawn in d4, so typically right in the Grünfeld, the move would have been knight takes e3, so white would have had the chain kind of more back. So it would be hard for black to actually attack it. But here, because this is the base of this chain, right, I can play c5 as well, and that's how the dark square bishop is going to be opened.
Gotcha.
So I think e6 was an alright move. If white would have had two knights to somehow get to f6, I wouldn't say the exact same things, but considering the situation and the fact that this knight cannot really get to f6 so easily, I think the move is okay. b3, we offer the trade, and now queen h4. So black is finishing the development, is finished, okay, move 15. And what could be black's plan now?
Play c5.
Prepare to play c5, yeah. Some rook d8. And it's very interesting. Queen h4 is also somewhat of an attraction type of move, because it says, well, I don't really have any threats on the king side, but feel free to play rook f4 and double. And rook f4 is actually not really helping white very much, because their plan is not on the f file. That's something very important to realize. You will see there will be positions where your opponent will have what it looks like a backwards pawn, and you will think, oh, I have to focus on that. But the way I like to explain it is, if you see a pawn that's backwards, just make sure you have sufficient pieces to attack it. And when I say sufficient, I also refer to the idea that you should have more pieces than the opponent. So you should have more pieces that attack that weakness than they have to protect it. Otherwise, it's just going to be like a waste of time. And white should actually focus on the queen side, in my opinion. Because now with the position closed on the king side, you can try to create like a minority type of attack, but also you can utilize the fact that this knight doesn't have squares. And this is a very famous idea for Grünfeld style positions. a4, of course, with the idea to play a5, chase the knight away, and then you can also either utilize those two squares if black will play a6, or you can try to play b4, b5 and create some weakness and open up your c file. So this is, in my opinion, the plan that white should have taken. Instead, rook f4 was played. The queen retreated to e7, which was probably the square where the queen could have gone immediately to. Rook f1, once again, attacking something that's super well defended. And now queen b4. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, c5 would have been the plan for black, really attacking the base of this chain of pawns and working on finally opening up that bishop, which is the strength in the Grünfeld. But okay, black played queen b4, and white made a small mistake here, queen c3. Why is this a small, or better said, big mistake? What's happening? Simple knight, right? Simple knight blunder. Okay, it was pretty okay game, balanced so far, with you know, a little bit more advantage for white. Then it was balanced, but this is certainly a big mistake. And typically when I teach my private students, I always stop after I see things like this. I just say, okay, there's no point to keep going. But of course, depending on the level, you have a lot of things to learn, and you can use a lot of tactical ideas. So of course, the knight is attacked. You have to move it and try. Why I'm saying to d1 and not b1? Well, I'm trying to kind of bring the knight towards a nice square. If you really want to try to attack, you can try to bring it that way. But of course, c5 is black's plan, so that's what they should do as black. But white blundered, and what do you guys think? Did black take the knight or no?
Yeah.
Of course, of course. So white took rook f7. So they had an idea, you know. I like to see when people are creative. So he probably thought that if he plays queen f3, black would not be able to capture the pawn in c3 because rook takes f7. But there's no need to panic, okay? Does white have any threats in this position? After rook takes f7.
Rook takes rook.
Rook takes rook, rook takes rook.
And I just step over to...
There's another threat. White actually has a threat in this position, but it is not rook takes rook. It's rook takes g7, right? Because we have a small tactical idea here, a discovery. So we want to take in g7. If the king takes, bishop h6 check, and then taking the queen. And yeah. Okay, so how can we stop that threat? Or what candidate moves do we have here with black?
You could take the rook. You could move the queen, I suppose. I like taking the rook.
Take the rook, and now what? Any ideas that white could have to continue the attack, or not so much? Probably not too much, but you can also play like the move that I added here, king h8. You cannot capture my bishop because you're pinned, right? And well, you can take there if you want, but that will be all of it. You don't have a discovery, and I have an extra piece. It is very important to not to panic when the opponent attacks you. Just look for the threats and try to find ways to defend. It's not, you know, it's not so serious. Unfortunately, in this position, black didn't realize what was white's threat, and thought it's very surprising, but what to do? That pawn in b7 is being attacked, but white doesn't actually threaten to take it, right? It's just it's very interesting. Of course, it depends on the level of the people, but you know, a threat is not necessarily something that's being attacked. You have to make sure a threat is something that you want to do in the next move that would be good for you. So just because a piece is under attack, it doesn't mean that it's actually threatened. And here that pawn in b7 is not threatened, but unfortunately for black, he made this, or she made this move, rook to b8, and of course, rook takes g7, king takes g7, and now bishop h6, and the game, you know, finished here. But black had one more choice here, not to lose the game, and that choice was to play king to h8. And I found the best for white that I can do is probably some perpetual check, but I was unable to find a way through which white can win because, well, your queen is attacked and the rook is emprise, so you basically, you need to do something about these two pieces. You cannot play a move like rook f7. Why? Not directly, right? You probably take here first.
Right,
Yeah. Just take here, queen takes, and then you can take the bishop. Just need to make sure you come back and protect your king. And anyways, but white can have some perpetual ideas with rook takes h7, check, and then grab some material, but there's no more than perpetual check. I didn't find more than that, so that was it. Well, it was, I think it was an interesting game, right? There was some cool stuff to learn regarding the positions. At the beginning it was a positional chess, and then it went more tactical, but the main thing to remember is when you have the space, do not trade pieces. I think that's the big thing. Okay, questions about this game?
Did that say it was a blitz game?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a blitz game. Yeah, so okay, it was a pretty fast game. So okay, so let's see one more game. Another one that was pretty interesting, and was sent by Meine, and I'll put it on training. I have my own discussion, but also he has added some discussion himself. Okay, so and this was, by the way, a game played, as you can see, between a father and his son. So anyways, it's cool to see. It's cool to see games like this. It was over the board, so I believe it was like just a normal game. They had enough time to think about, but we don't know their ratings, so we'll try to figure out. Okay, so D45. Have you guys ever encountered this?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So at about what level is this played a lot?
1 minute.
1 minute? Oh wow. Okay.
I played it in 90, game 90.
Well, I think you can play. I've seen some players, you know, yeah, but not 1 minute. Really, I guess 1 minute it would make sense. I'll remember when I go back to playing bullet to consider that. Of course, the Budapest Gambit makes a little bit more sense, but this one, okay, I don't know. But white chose not to take it.
That's what I did.
Which makes sense if you think you are allowing your opponent to develop the pieces too fast, then you might not want to take the pawn, and you might want to go for the space. I don't see anything wrong with that. Of course, capture is another option. Then probably knight c6, knight f3, and I think this is a better position than the Budapest Gambit. But I've seen people playing f6 here or d6, and they do get some play. So it's, you know, there's nothing wrong with this. But d5, you know, if you have some knowledge in King's Indian position, King's Indian type positions, then I believe d5 does make sense, and you're trying to get through your openings. But again, we don't know the level of our viewers, so we cannot really tell very much. Okay, so we got into kind of an old Indian position, and basically here white played knight c3, but for any of you who are playing this with white, in my opinion, e4 is a better move. So the idea is that in case a capture happens, you want to bring your knight out to c3, and you're going to try to maintain a piece in e4. That outpost is really important in King's Indian types of positions, and in case black protects it with knight f6, bishop f5, your idea is you're going to bring your other knight to g3 to bring more pressure on e4, and then there's also bishop g5 that's being played. Sometimes you give the bishop for that knight in f6, other times you don't need to, but you will manage to get your pawn back. So for some of you who are interested in or don't have a system against these types of positions, you can certainly look up this e4 move in here. Knight c3, knight f6. Now, of course, you can play e4 once again. So you'd get similar positions with the ones that I mentioned. If black doesn't take, what do you guys think you will do with white? Development, right? So the bishop can still go to g5. This one can go to d3. The knight f3 or d2. It really depends whether black will try to push or not. But you can, if you put a little bit more pressure on f5, they will have to do something about the pawn. But just remember, typically you want to remain with a piece in e4, not a pawn. Anyways, here white played queen to c2. But the problem is, now it's a little bit of a strange situation because you don't manage to protect both d5 and e4. So it has gotten into a really interesting position after f takes e4, knight takes e4. For example, if black would have taken here, queen takes, bishop e7, I think black has a decent position to play. For example, knight f3, castle, then you want bishop f5. If white will take, with which piece do you think will take back? The knight or the pawn?
I'd go with the knight.
You'd go with the knight? Both of them, I think, are interesting. If you take with the pawn, you will try to have the center. If you take with the knight, you'll have to be careful a little bit about the d5 square and the backwards pawn, but it depends. It depends whether you will be able to create some threats or place your knight in d4 or not. I think both of them are equally good. In this game, well, I did a game, but we won't see it till the end. But it was played between. Oh, I didn't write it. Never mind. But for example, let's just say a continuation bishop d3, bishop f5. Black can simply trade that bishop, and then we don't have big troubles. I think black equalized without any problems. Do you guys agree? Okay. Would you prefer to play white or black in this position? Black? I would probably take black too there. But anyway, so that game didn't quite go this way. Black took with a pawn in d5. What do we do here with white?
Knight takes knight.
Very good. Pawn takes, pawn takes. Who is better in this position?
It's gotta be white.
I like white, yes, in this position. The only thing you have to be on the look for is this pawn d5 to make sure you're not going to lose it. But of course, right now, ideas with queen a5 capture are not good for black because they have their bishop hanging, so they cannot look at those for the moment. And black continued their development with the knight in d7, and it's always tricky. I've always wondered. I used to be a Benoni player with black, and I still play it sometimes. And sometimes you develop the knight through d7, other times through a6, and both have different ideas. But I think in this position, especially because white has this pawn in d5, which cannot be protected by another pawn, it would make a little bit more sense to develop the knight in a6. The idea is that you have two ideas. One would be to place the knight there, a very typical idea which you have also with the knight in d7. But if you place your knight in a6, you also maintain this other idea to place your knight in c7 and put pressure on the pawn in d5. I don't think there's a big difference between these two moves, but typically just remember that it's important to play with more than one idea. When you start playing with more than one idea, your level will increase as well, because you know, it will also make it harder for your opponent to stop both of the ideas. But if you just go for one, like threat, move after move after move, then your opponent will probably, figure it out, and you won't get very much from positions. So I think knight a6 makes a little bit more sense here for black. But knight d7 was played, bishop d2, knight b6, bishop e2. Can we capture the pawn in d5? We can. Is it good? We'll find out. Bishop h5 check, king e7. Have you guys ever seen games where somebody remains with the king in the center?
Yeah, one of my games.
One of your games, great. Well, what do you think about this king? What do you think about black's king? Is black's king okay there in e7?
It's a decent fortress.
It's a decent fortress, yeah, with these pawns here. I mean, he's doing pretty all right. I mean, just needs to make sure that no other piece will infiltrate. But for the moment, black is doing all right. But he has to, you know, maintain this. So white finished their development, knight e2, bishop e6. Seems pretty good for black, right? At this point, black has an extra pawn, right? And if I manage to develop my pieces, I should be fine. Castle. Rook c8, queen b3. Was this good or no? White is trying to have some little threats from this side, but has also placed his queen on a potential discovery. So b6 is played by black. I have a question for you. A move like knight f4. Would a move like knight f4 work here for black? It's possible. So what do we do with white?
Queen takes b7.
Then you move the rook and you're going to lose a piece.
No, then queen to f3.
For example. Oops. Yeah, you can do something like this. And you took a little pawn.
There you go.
But after b6, black can start considering ideas like this. And white seem not to care. They play rook e1, knight f4, queen f3, and now bishop d5, which I don't like very much. I think if you play knight f4, you should have gone for the bishop. First of all, black would have taken the pair of bishops. Trading pieces is in their favor. They have an extra pawn, right? And also not trading pieces. Black would be trading an active piece of white's that's kind of annoying and restricting the scheme, keeping it in the center. So this way we would have some ideas like, I don't know, like queen e8, for example, try to trade a queen. We need to try to trade pieces. And if, let's say, obviously, if white takes the queen, we take with the king, and now what is, I mean, I think black would have no trouble winning this position, right?
Yes.
The pair of bishops, passed pawn, this one, center, two central pawns, c-file, the king is already placed perfectly in the center for the end game, this, you know. So if you're white and you are supposedly attacking, well, you're not attacking very much right now, but you have a rook on the same file as the king, you have the queen kind of active, you don't want to trade. So you'd play a move like queen h4, but after queen f7, let's say you bring one more rook, now rook g8, and it's not going to be so clear who is attacking who in this position, because black can start some attack on the g file as well. And the fact that the king is in the center doesn't necessarily mean the king is weak. So, like we were mentioning earlier, there's a small fortress that black has created, and it's not so easy to break it through. So, in my opinion, black should have just taken that bishop, and you know, white would suffer with the pawn down. But in the game, bishop d5 was played, and here our viewer has played a beautiful move, queen takes f4. And well, I really wanted to show this game today as well because it reminded me of my US Championship win where I sacrificed the queen. So I thought it would be nice to show this game. So what is happening now after pawn takes? It's not going 100% in white's favor, but they get a really good advantage. How do we continue here with white? Check. Only one move for black, king to d7. How about now? Well, let's think about it for a second. We have sacrificed a queen for a knight, right? So a knight and a pawn. So
Bishop G4.
do we have any other candidate moves besides bishop G4? Or that's our only one? Just to make sure.
Bishop E8.
Bishop E8 is another candidate move, yeah. Which one would we go for?
I like bishop e8 because
Bishop
you can capture that bishop to check.
The thing is, after bishop E8, queen takes.
Oh, you're down the rook.
That's the small problem.
Yeah.
And you take here, if it would be your move and you could take in f6, then it would be great. But unfortunately, it's not, so black has a much better position. They can just protect this bishop g7 or rook somewhere. Or maybe they could have even taken with the king. So no, bishop g4 makes sense, very good. We don't want to take this bishop though, right? Because we wouldn't have sufficient material with white for the queen sacrificed. I mean, yes, it's true, this king is in the center, but you want to have sufficient material as well. But you continue things with check, bishop g4 check, king c7. And now, rook c1 was very, very important to be made by white. Because black cannot play bishop c6. We've got this check, right? And winning the queen, which is very important. So if black plays, I don't know, king b8 or king b7, then we take and we'll have a piece up. So here in this line that I had here, knight e6 check, takes the queen with check, and now bishop c3. This pawn cannot be protected because if bishop g7, we've got rook e7 check, and white has a better, big advantage. So it went from much worse, a pawn down and not a serious attack, to something. You know, tactical idea, it's very important for a lot of us to do tactics, because you can have ideas like this, you know, sacrifice and then get a lot of pieces for the queen and have a great position. Actually, white didn't make the best move here. They played bishop takes c8. After king takes, now it's not so simple to get the queen. But, okay, black made some mistakes. You know, it's tough to, you know, before coming to St. Louis to be a GM resident, I played a tournament and I played a game where I had a queen for a rook and I was unable to win. So it can happen to anyone. You really need to make the evaluation of the position and figure out whether your queen is stronger than the pieces, or are the pieces that the opponent has stronger than yours. Here I think black should have tried something like rook g8 and simply get the rook away from the diagonal. Instead, f5 was played, and now bishop c3, very good move played by white. Knight f6, and black blundered, didn't realize the threats. We had two threats here. and black only looked at one, so bishop g7 had to be played. It's kind of tough to play this position, but queen versus two rooks can be held, right? We can have a lot of threats, and especially because the rooks are not active. If the rooks would have been on the 7th rank, creating some mating threats, yeah, we would worry with black. But here, probably the game would end in a draw. But unfortunately, black played rook to g7, unfortunately for them, and after rook e8, the game is over. So, two very interesting games that we've seen so far. I think we might have time to do a little, well, one more. What did you guys think about these? Nice games of our viewers or not so nice?
I like them.
They were
Like them?
interesting.
Interesting. Some sacrifices, a little bit of tactics here and there. Okay, somebody was really excited about this game. So let's try to see how much of it we can get going. Okay, so Pinto Nicolas against somebody we don't know. He didn't tell us the name of his opponent, but we know that his rating was 1588, and it's a tournament, right? It's a tournament game. So that's all we know. Okay, and they're very excited. So we chose their game, I mean his game. Okay, some English that switched into something else. C takes d4, knight takes d4, knight c6. Anyone is familiar with this kind of opening? Like English, English, yeah. We got into an English now. Yeah? So what should white play in this position? Knight retreat. Knight c2. Here, there. Knight c2 or e3. Don't take the knight. Don't take the knight in c6. You're probably helping black to improve their position. But knight c2 or e3 are main lines here for white. Well, in this game, white play knight f3, which I don't like. Because, well, why? Why return in f3? You're trying to get an advantage with white. This is something everyone should learn. My friends here in class, but those who are watching online too, you know, it's important to develop your pieces, and especially when you have white, it's important to maintain some small advantage for as long as possible. If you go back, you don't really get very much of from the position, right? Two pieces, and where's this knight going? Why is knight c2 a main line? Because this knight eventually will be rerouted towards d5. That's something very important to know, because black needs to get this bishop out, and in order to take it out, d6 is going to be played, and if d6 is going to be played, e6 probably will not be played also, because this pawn in d6 will remain weak. So typically that's an outpost, not outpost forever, because it can the knight can be chased away from there, but that's the way to go for white. But knight f3 is not such a great alternative. Bishop takes e3, pawn takes e3, queen a5. Black is still playing the same kind of fashion as they would play after knight c2. Queen c2, f5. What do you think about this move? I see some faces, people are unhappy about this move, but you're not saying much about it. So are you unhappy, or are you happy about this move for black? You are not happy? For black or for white?
White.
So it's a good move for black?
I'll say yes. It seems to matter.
Yes, it's very typical for this type of opening. So I like to use these things. So as you learn to play chess, you learn some very basic stuff and fundamentals and everything. And then as you improve all those things, it's not like they don't matter so much, but you start creating even more rules around it. So you're learning that you shouldn't play the f pawn at the beginning. But then as you improve as a chess player, you learn that sometimes moves like this make sense, especially if you are you have an idea further, or you're restricting your opponent from doing something, and also if you don't weaken your king, or you don't do weaknesses for yourself very much, but you're doing something good, then moves like this are good. So this f5 basically what it's doing is helping restrict e4 for white, right? But also helping black getting that knight at some point to a stronger place, and it's just a really nice restrictive move. And yes. So anyways, bishop g5, h6, bishop retreated, knight f6, very typical. And now d6. I don't like this move so much. I think black should go with b6 in my opinion, because what is white's problem? These double pawns. White's pawn structure on the queen side has been destroyed. So if you look at it on a balance, black gave away their fianchetto bishop, the bishop that was going to protect their king, for the purpose of creating weaknesses on the queen side and messing up white's pawn structure. So if you do that, you need to utilize what you got, because you gave away something. So what you got are those pawns, and you have to find a way to start attacking them. And typically, it's with b6, bishop a6, rook c8, start putting pressure on the pawns. And that's something that black did not do. Black played d6 here, knight d4. Of course, black does not want to take in d4 and help white improve the pawn structure, so bishop d7. I like this e5 here, because you also don't want to take in c6, right? This position is much better for black. Even if your pawns are not doubled on an open file, black's pawn structure has improved as well. And the fact that you have the pair of bishops is not really helpful, because they don't have a good diagonal to actually do something. So knight b3 would have probably been played by white, and I think after queen c7, black has a great play. We'll have to bring his king to safety and then start putting pressure on the weakness. Okay. So black chose the wrong plan. Typically this plan, can anybody tell me when is this plan with a6, b5 happening for black in a similar pawn structure, but not here? In which pawn structure? Does anyone know?
Just Roxy pawn structure.
Which one?
Roxy, e4,
Roxy?
c4.
The Maruti?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
probably
that
Roxy.
one. Yeah, it's okay. I pronounce it differently also. So, yes, in the Maruti pawn structure, because well, typically there are 3 pawns here, and black doesn't have. So typically that's how white places their pawns, and they have a pawn in e4 also, of course. And black is really restricted. They don't have any piece that has crossed the 6th rank, so they really want to get some space, as I was mentioning to you from the first game that we saw. And black typically does this. They sometimes even give away a pawn just to get some play. But here, why would you want to trade white's doubled pawns? You want to attack them, you want to win them. So that was black's mistake. So white took advantage of it, did very well, rook b1. Queen c7, finished the development, and now finally black is attacking the knight, the pawn in c4, I'm sorry, with the knight. Rook d1, king f7. I was very surprised about this move. I don't know. I think black should castle. I mean, not king f7. Here they can take the pawn.
I wanted to play king f7 unless the queen's off the board. So.
No, I mean, sometimes you do that. You play king f7 and your rook will be brought into play. But why? There's no necessity. You can also castle. It's the same thing, and you actually bring the rook on the f file. But sometimes there are ideas with e5 and f4. So sometimes not here, but king f7 doesn't make very much sense to me. Plus the pawn was hanging. So and hopefully you guys can see that here, for example. Rook takes b7 is a blunder. Why? Yeah, bishop a4, bishop a4. Yeah. Bishop a4. Okay. And now? The rook is trapped, no? Not sure, a5 first, or I feel like that rook will be lost very soon. A5, no? We don't like it? Something happens? Is there something I'm missing? Looks okay. It looks like that rook will be trapped because you cannot move both pieces and move your knight. So if I attack the rook the next move, I think it will be lost. Queen c6? If I'm not missing some tactics, this is the way to go. That should not work.
What about like queen d2 there? If you play queen c6 and then knight d4 maybe?
Okay,
Yeah,
can I put the queen somewhere else, or?
Yeah.
And I would play bishop to c6 and threaten to bring the queen over to g4.
I can also.
The rook's unprotected, and you're also hitting g2.
I can also move the queen here, and then attack it again. And I mean that rook should be lost very soon. I take the rook. If knight a5, I take. I didn't see. But okay, black didn't take, and after king f7, queen b2, now if you take in c4, I will be able to take in b7. So black played e5, knight b3, and bishop c6. Again, I'm a little bit surprised that black would not want to capture the pawn. You know, don't put a knight in the on the margin and forget about it. Make sure you follow your plans. I mean, it's really important. So anyways, after bishop c6 here, queen a3, takes, h5. You know, we look at this position. If we switch, like if I go back with a notation, you see this position, but if you earlier had seen, let's see, like this position, you realize that white was helped a lot. His pawn structure has improved, you know, he's finished the development, and black did finish his development as well, but traded some piece that wasn't so helpful to trade the knight in that fashion. So anyways, let's try to finish this. Oopsie, I'm sorry. Okay. So anyways, black started some attack that, you know, it doesn't really work to attack this way. You need to be able to open a file, and h5 unfortunately doesn't help them. c5 and d5, c4. I like this move very much. Now white is actually getting a better position because they're having the pair of bishops. So when we have the pair of bishops, we want our bishops to have good diagonals. And with the last two moves, white was allowed to you know, open up the position. Black is trying to keep it closed, but unfortunately, that pawn is going to be lost pretty fast. Before it was maybe a better move for white, but okay. Bishop a5, rook e1, a little discoveries on the way. Now bishop f3. The rook is protected, so we don't need to worry about the sacrifice in e1. Queen f4, takes, f3. Who is better in this position? Because?
Bishop versus knight.
Bishop versus knight.
And the question is the d4 pawn strong or weak? And I think it's weak.
If you don't have a way to sustain it, to help it push, it's going to be lost eventually. And white is it's not as much better, but it's slightly better in this position. Queen b2, bishop d2, taking the rook, but it's not winning. And now white made a mistake. Rook takes e1. After bishop takes e1, probably it's not so clear. But after rook takes e1, do you know what black did? Check, check, and now queen c3, and trade. And you have to be a little bit careful here, not to lose this. But unfortunately, in this position, black blundered knight d7. So it's really important to realize in this endgame that you might lose the pawn. So you have to find a way to kind of create, to force white to do something. So if you, for example, here you push c2, you're threatening to promote. White has to place the bishop in e3, so the king doesn't arrive to actually come grab the pawn. And now knight d7. The move order in which black did the things was wrong, because now, for example, b4, right? Because I'm threatening to, or just simply take because of the promotion. Your bishop cannot do anything, so you have to play b4. And now black manages to activate the knight, and will probably trade these two pawns, and the game would probably end in a draw. Bishop f4 and king here, and okay. Probably white has some chances to make a draw. But instead, here black made a mistake. He went knight d7 first, and now white has managed to put his king in the box, of that pawn. And after f4, white is winning, because now I'm taking this pawn, I'm not giving anything away, and I can just win at my own leisure. So pretty nice game. Kind of went back and forth, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed these games. That's all that I have from viewer's choice, so thanks.